So a few of you sent me the post that I'm covering today. It's a post that got really popular on the ex-Christian subreddit where we see a screenshot from the pastor's wife to a 15-year-old girl about the fact that she missed the summer youth camp. And what it is straight up spiritual abuse. This is the exact definition of it. And a lot of people won't see it as that, especially if you're a believer or a young person. That's what makes it abusive. You've been conditioned to think that this is normal. It is not. Just because there's emojis and I love yous and no obvious threat doesn't mean that this is not downright abusive. What's happening here, and I'm going to read you the full thing and then we're going to go kind of line by line through it. But what's happening here is an incorrect association that saying no to this camp is saying no to God himself, to the spiritual authority he's placed in her life, to the possibility to do God's will to the fullest. And you know what doesn't matter here? And I just want to get this out of the way. It doesn't matter how well-intentioned, if at all, the pastor's wife was when sending this. Her motives don't matter. This is the kind of harm that is a byproduct by this fucked up imbalance between power with spiritual authority and younger people. The fact that they're even texting directly is so unbelievably ridiculous, but the parents, assuming they're involved in this, probably had no problem with this. In fact, what a gift from God that the pastor's wife would be involved to this level. Parents, do not be so stupid as to trust any outside source with this kind of communication, especially within this kind of position. Too many times it is a free pass to pastors and youth leaders and Bible study directors, etc., to have this level of influence and access to children. Enough with this, no matter what you believe. I hate this so much, but let me read it to you first, and then we're going to break it down. I'm so disappointed to hear of your decision to cancel camp, the single most important week of the year spiritually, and you're backing out. Who knows what God could have done in your heart that would have affected your entire life? We'll never know now. This was quite a decision to make without getting counsel from your pastor and youth pastor who love you and want the best for you, praying for you. I love you even though I'm disappointed in you. And then the emojis. If I saw this text on my child's phone, I would absolutely lose my mind. And further, here's a bit of context for you. This 15-year-old girl was visiting a friend out of state. During that visit, it is found out that the friend's father has a cancer diagnosis, so the friend decides to stay an extra week to be a good friend and support her friend going through this hard time. Because of that, she will inevitably have to miss the planned church camp. Not that these people are owed an explanation, but there's no curiosity. There's no, oh, something must have come up. I'd love to talk to you about this, even though that's still an insane overreach. For people that are hearing directly from God and supposedly in some degree in charge spiritually over this young lady, where is the discernment? Where is hearing from God? There was a follow-up post, and I'm not going to get into it because I really do just want to keep this simple on this one text message. But it was more text messages from the pastor himself, who's a 70-year-old male, to this girl's friend about her as they go back and forth as he's trying to get more information out of her friend and defending his actions. And again, you can start screaming in the comments about grooming and you wouldn't be wrong. But I really do want to cover the nuance here that this could be innocent from the pastor and his wife. It's fucked up. Sorry for the language today. But again, this is an acceptable thing in Christian communities, if not an endorsed and desired thing. Let's start breaking it down. And I could be wrong about any individual point here on this particular text, but this is larger. We're talking about a pattern that exists where adults in a position of spiritual authority use guilt and fear and the spiritual stakes of it all and emotional dependence to coerce or pressure a minor into compliance with what they want. God is not an excuse for you to behave incorrectly and inappropriately ever. So to break this down first, I think we should talk about the adult versus minor boundary problem. Should there ever be private communication between a 15-year-old and someone in a position of power? And this isn't just me attacking religion. I wouldn't want the coach's wife at the secular public school texting this 15-year-old girl either in this way. You want to give an update to the full team on the calendar of events? Fine, if you've gotten parents' permission. And maybe you don't agree with me on this. I'm sure that we could make a couple cases here, but I just don't think it's appropriate in any way. I don't see any good ever coming from this. But furthermore, here specifically, a teenager's decision to attend camp or not should never trigger an emotional, pressured response from her spiritual authority. The pastor's wife here is not just some friend of the family. It's the pastor's wife. And if you've ever been in churches like this, you understand the weight that that position carries, especially to the younger females. She's part of the overall authority structure of the church. That's the other thing. Not to say that the pastor even has the training necessary. I was actually talking about this with my wife and kids last night, how much I cannot stand the concept. We are watching Young Sheldon, which, by the way, is a pretty great show to watch with your kids to point out a few interesting things about faith. But we were watching an episode where the pastor is sick, and so Sheldon's mom fills in for spiritual counseling. I can't tell you how much I hate the idea of the pastor giving counseling when most of them have never received any kind of training for this, but then just to pass it off to any other church staff, as if just because you're on some executive level with God, you have the expertise to be able to guide people in this way with this kind of authority. I hate it. And I don't know what's worse. The adults in these religious communities in their positions of power that underestimate the effect that they can have, especially on minors, but really on any believer that is looking to them for spiritual guidance, or the ones that revel in it, see themselves as God's vessel to guide and correct their flock. And every kid is different. I hope this 15-year-old girl took it with a grain of salt, that it was just some woman in her life that said one dumb thing, but it could easily be viewed as the entire church, the pastor, the leadership council, and God himself being displeased with her, angry with her, judging her, condemning her. I'm never happy for any abuse that happens, but good going, because this is the kind of thing that 100% absolutely people realize at some point in their deconstruction, and it only serves as ammo about how this clearly wasn't a beautiful, life-giving, truth-bearing religion. How immature was this pastor's wife, a 70-year-old man, so let's just assume a similar age for her. What kind of a response is this, no matter what your position is, to a child? Grow up. And yes, it may sound like I'm being additionally harsh because of the Christian background here. You don't have to be a Christian to be an asshole. But there's a certain kind of part of the pattern that because it's religious in nature, these people feel more entitled, more that they have the right to be doing this, and that the stakes are high enough that even if they're not communicating in the best possible manner or overstepping their bounds, that the ends justify the means. I'm sure of it. But let's get to the actual words. We're still like abstractly talking about the entire context around this. It starts with, I'm so disappointed. We all know why this hits so hard. It's a common trope. People usually apply it to their dad. It's one thing when someone gets mad at you when they're angry, but when they give you that look or when they straight up say they're disappointed, that's what cuts the deepest. Disappointing a trusted adult can be devastating to a teen, especially one eager to please, which is, again, we're speaking in generalities, a typical thing that has been conditioned into them, especially in this kind of church culture where there's so much tied to obedience. So hearing that you have disappointed the pastor and or the pastor's wife here carries a significant amount of weight for this teen. By the way, you can think whatever you want about a 15-year-old, but this 15-year-old made a choice. I'm assuming they cleared it with their parents even. They're going to stay an extra week with their friend, but they've set a boundary. I'm not going to go to this. Using disappointment, which is such a high lever, as a tactic to pressure a minor in reversing their boundary is again just like the definition of unhealthy. And even in the world where we somehow agree that it's totally okay for this pastor's wife to be texting individually this 15-year-old girl, what about, I'm sad you won't be there, we're really going to miss you, can't wait to have you at the next one? That still expresses, oh, I'm disappointed, without all of that baggage. In fact, that can actually be loving and supportive. So even if you don't agree with me on the communication shouldn't be happening, if you are the kind of Christian who is defending this text message, you could not be more wrong, and you are indeed part of the problem. And what is she disappointed in? The girl's decision to cancel camp. This frames the girl as the problem. It's not about the situation. It's not about plans changing. It's not about curiosity about, oh, hey, what happened? I'd love to know. I'd love to pray for you. Again, even in the Christian world, there's better ways to do this. No, it's you are choosing this, and I am disappointed. Cancel camp is exaggeratory. It makes it sound bigger than it is. She is adding weight. This is bad communication at best, and manipulative and fear-based pressure at worst. She's choosing not to attend. She didn't cancel camp. You can argue with me about the semantics, but words matter. And when every single line could have been said better to convey less baggage, disappointment, judgment, and pressure, I have to believe they're being chosen purposely. Yes, it's just my opinion, my assumption, but we have good evidence here. It also, I think, implies a connotation of it's disruptive at large. Again, it's not just about you not being here. Cancel camp makes it sound like it's affecting everybody else. She's disappointing others, not just her leadership. She's responsible for this going poorly. But this is common. Manipulative systems like this often make ordinary and even healthy boundaries sound like betrayal at large. If you've ever had an abusive parent, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. You're abandoning us. You're walking away. You're causing division. You're backing out. You're breaking our hearts. So much of this kind of language is used to elicit that deeper, bigger guilt response. Barf. Again, whoever you are, whatever you believe, if you're the kind of person that does this, especially to a child, grow up. And the pressure just escalates. Because the next line is about how this is the single most important week of the year spiritually, which probably just means that this pastor who has total control over his congregation and his staff maybe gave his wife 1 week of importance where she gets to run the girls' church camp. Again, I'm guessing, but I'd make a decent-sized bet that that is the case or something very similar. So not only did she cancel camp, but it's not just camp. It's the single most important event of the year, exaggerating the stakes, causing the fear of missing out. There's an implication here, though, that this could damage her relationship with her God. Whoa, how self-important. How ridiculous to think that the thing that's not in the Bible that you chose to put on as a church, as one event, and maybe you should offer more than if it comes down to these stakes. What about people that are on family vacations? What about if someone gets sick? You're going to jeopardize their entire future with God because you put all your eggs in this one particular church camp basket? That sounds like really bad leadership. It's all about upping the stakes and using the divine, the spiritual, the most spiritual important week of the year. Forget Christmas and Easter. Forget the fact that supposedly you can approach this God anytime you want now and have his spirit dwelling inside of you. If you miss this woman's little church group camp, you have missed out on your potential with God. Get bent. If your theology, your church plan requires that every 15-year-old girl be totally available to you for an entire week of her summer, else she disappoint the Lord on high and ruin her future potential relationship with him, you and your church are the problem in addition to this religion. And then there's the hypocrisy. What happened to the sovereignty of God? What happened to God being omnipresent? What about the personal God who seeks you and loves you and won't give up on you and is constantly pursuing you? How weak is your God? And I feel like I've been having to say this more because it's the first comment that comes up and it's used to dismiss things on a lot of my videos. I am not saying that this particular text represents all of Christianity. I am not saying that this particular text means the Christian God is not real. But I'm also not just talking about this one text. Like I said at the beginning, this happens too much. I have heard from tens of thousands of you over the last 3 years who have deconverted about these kinds of stories in your life. I see this stuff posted everywhere all the time in ex-religious communities. And again, I witnessed it personally more times than I could even remember or count. If you don't like that this is tied to the religion you believe in and love, what are you doing to change it? Because most of the time, if you even do anything at all, it's just to blame a bad apple and act like it's not indicative of the religion at large. But the religion absolutely, biblically supports this kind of thing. Have you ever read the epistles from Paul and how he chastises people? He does. That's what we should have done. We should have done a comparison between this text and like the intro to one of Paul's letters. They're not pulling this out of left field. This has been part of the religious pressure and tactics for quite literally millennia now in this religion. Are there still good Christians who would never do this? Of course. That's not what I'm saying, but let's continue on here. The next main term is, and you're backing out. It can't just be neutral. It can't just be that you had a conflicting event. Backing out implies like cowardice or irresponsibility, unreliability. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm dumb. Maybe there was a church contract here that I'm unaware of where this 15-year-old signed her life away to pledge her attendance for this week. What happened to, I heard you're not coming. I understand that plans change, but no, it's you're backing out. What's being implied here is just failure. So much more than anything that we've talked about that could have been stated. This is a failure of her character. This is really an assassination of her character from her spiritual authority. She's getting punched in all the right combos here to elicit what these believers think is going to be the desired outcome. Remorse, repentance, begging for forgiveness, never missing again. Always focused on the short term, always using the tactics they're most aware of and familiar with because it's the ones that have worked on them. Guilt, shame, fear, because that is what the Lord does. That is the template in the Bible of the character of God. Obey or else. So they just don't know any different. They don't know any better. And so many of them are so uneducated in any other thing that they really believe this is the best way to communicate, the best way to get what they want, the best way to build a church. How pathetic. Most of this so far has been about her disappointment, how it affects her or the rest of the group. Now she's going to bring in God with this line. Who knows what God could have done in your heart? Now again, some of you listening to this have been an atheist your whole life, or you have forgotten what it's like to be a teenager, or even maybe forgotten what it's like to really believe in this God. But put all that together, you're 15, you earnestly believe, or maybe you're even doubting, you still respect this spiritual authority, this church structure, and they are telling you, as if it's fact, that you are missing out in some capacity because of this one decision on what God has in store for you, or had in store for you. And because, again, this is all religiously bent and around this God that doesn't even exist, this kind of statement cannot be disproven, right? Like, I'm not saying that there's not abusive, ridiculous coaches. We'll go back to the coach example that have some traveling team, kind of that early, like 12 to 16-year-old stage, and they're putting on all kinds of pressure. You're letting the team down. How dare you miss this tournament or this game? But at least there's shreds of truth in there when they throw out, like, you're really potentially screwing up your shot. Like, if there's only one tournament where the scouts are going to be, that's still pressure and that's still not the best way to communicate, but it might at least be true, or it could be verifiable, falsifiable. But with God, it's just taken as fact, especially if this young girl really believes. That's a big deal. That makes it a big difference than all the other horrible adults that communicate in horrible ways to children. So before you say, well, adults do this in general, why are you harping on the Christian one so much? Because it's so additionally problematic for all the reasons we've already covered, and this one above them all. Maybe not above them all, because there's still the bigger picture here that this is the stakes of your eternal soul, of your relationship with your creator. Even if you're a kid obsessed with sports and it's your only chance to get the college ride or potentially go pro someday, it pales in comparison to this kind of thing affecting your soul and your relationship with your God. I'm sure some of you, when I read the text after my intro, were like, he's making too big a deal out of this. That text was really no big deal. I hope you see now why this kind of thing is such a big deal. And I hope if you're a Christian, you start to take a little bit more seriously the thing you say is the most serious, important thing in the world, instead of acting dumbfounded when some skeptic or ex-Christian like me comes at it so passionately. I don't believe in your God, but I believe in the very real power that your religion has over the young people who believe in it and adhere to it. You should take that as seriously as you claim you take your God. These invisible consequences, these unfalsifiable claims, are a big part of what is being weaponized against this young lady. And just to show you that the stakes keep going up, the next main line is that would have affected your entire life. So first we made it a betrayal of the spiritual degree that affects your relationship with God, and now that's a lifelong thing. Escalation after escalation after escalation after escalation. Because a 15-year-old wanted to be a good friend for her friend who just found out her dad might be dying of cancer, which won't be getting healed by the church either. This is catastrophic framing to a young person, or at least has the potential to be so. If it were up to me, this kind of thing would be a fireable offense. You and your husband should not be leaders in any regard. But there's another problem. Where's the accountability? That's something else we're not talking about here. Who's overseeing her and her communication? If the child complains, or even if the parents can get on board that this is wrong, what happens? Nothing. At best, they can remove themselves from the church and the abuse continues. Going back to my coaching example, coaches can be fired. They can be blocked with references from getting that same job and being able to interact with children in the same way. The lack of accountability and responsibility for church leadership at large is, again, why this is so much worse in a religious context. Telling a 15-year-old that her not doing what you wanted her to do literally is affecting her entire life is abuse. And best I can put it together, this girl is now 17 and I think deconstructed, or at least her friend was, and deconverted. But if she were still stuck in this, and if she ever got to see this video, which go post on the Reddit thing, I want to give these people support. You did nothing wrong. And whether you believe still in this God or not, you need to know that what these adults did that were supposedly in authority over you is unacceptable, and that they are not in authority over you. It is a facade. This is a system that has been created. Even if you believe in an afterlife and your soul, they have nothing to do with it. They were out of line. They were incorrect. They were manipulative. And hopefully you know better than all this by now, but if you don't, and if you can hear it from me, good job being a good friend. Good job sticking up for yourself. Good job setting a boundary. And I am so sorry that you had to deal with this from these important people in your life. It continues to get worse though as we look through the rest of the text. We'll never know, just once again, how disbeneficial is that? Even if you believe that you needed to send the rest, this "we'll never know" not only hurts the individual child, but takes away the power from your supposed all-powerful God. Your self-importance reeks. How little joy and contentment you must have in this religion that supposedly offers you a peace that surpasses all understanding. And then comes the scolding. Oh, it was quite a decision to make. No, not really. In fact, for anyone that's not totally consumed with all the wrong priorities, like you obviously are, this is a relatively easy decision. In fact, a sacrificial decision to stay with one friend that she had already been with a week and miss out on what she probably did want to go to or thought would be good for her, even if she wasn't excited about it, or probably still had a lot of other friends that would be there, and those things can be a lot of fun. No, she chose to stay with her friend in a hard time. That's behavior that should be rewarded, not scolded, only to then drop one of the biggest red flags. Quite a decision to make without what? Counsel from your pastor and your youth pastor. Reinforcing her husband's important position. The audacity of thinking that you should have any influence at all, any counsel at all in this 15-year-old's life, and how they spend a week of their life is actually insane. Notice she didn't even say herself. She said your pastor and your youth pastor. I would bet anything that youth pastor is a male. That woman is submissively to her spiritual authority, highlighting their importance, their male church authority into a minor girl's personal decision. Just think about that for a second. Talk about taking away any autonomy that you would be trying to build in a young person that's going to be out on their own in 3 years. You're not capable of making this decision. In fact, we don't even trust your family who apparently let you do this. Like, that's undermining her parents. The hierarchy is getting displayed very clearly here. Your parents are secondary. You didn't talk to us about this. And I'm sorry, I know I'm being redundant, but this goes further than just this text and about church group. Endless stories about youth leaders, Bible study leaders, pastors getting involved in who young people are dating, what college they're going to go to, what career they're going to pursue. Get out of their life. You have nothing positive to add here with your made up authority. It is said as if she owes them something. You already take her family's money to judge them. Can't that be enough? You greedy morons. And then comes all the stupid other side of the coin as if it fixes everything above. We just want the best for you. I love you. With the reminder, even though I'm disappointed in you. Again, I don't care who you are. That's pure immaturity. You are someone who never learned how to communicate well with others. I'd feel bad for you if I wasn't so enraged with how stupid your decisions are here. And then the emojis. Ugh. Whatever. Oh yeah, she also said, we'll be praying for you. Why? What's the point? Didn't she just mess up her entire life? Didn't she just miss out? Won't we now never know what could have been? What are you going to pray about? Here's what you could have prayed about. I'm praying that you have peace. I'm praying that it can be a great time with your friend. And since I asked about it because I'm curious and I actually care about you instead of just want to judge and condemn you, I'll be praying for her father too, even though that would be hollow. It's all so disgusting. I can just see it. That prayer like some kind of a velvet glove over her clenched fist. You don't get to talk about love after a text like that. You don't know what love is, even though you proclaim to worship the God whose definition is love. The only reason you sent any of that at the end was just to cover your ass in case she does feel pressured or she does chirp back, oh, I was just doing it out of love. This is care. This is guidance. And then I guarantee it would just be a blame. You must have a lot of resentment in your heart. What sin is going on that is causing you to act out like this? This is one example of what I know exists en masse. And I see it all. I see it all just boom in a millisecond in my brain. Tens of thousands of examples that I personally have seen, witnessed, or heard about. Every time some commenter says, what's your problem with Christianity? Why are you so hard on the church? Why are you so hard on the Bible? Why are you so hard on religion? Are you kidding? It is a nightmare. Here is one tiny example of it. And this stuff happens to adults too. But man, the compounded harm with minors. This poor girl is still learning so much. She's learning her voice. She's learning how to say no, when she should say no, what it means to respect authority but gain autonomy, how to separate guilt from her own conscience, how to move forward even in discomfort, how to distinguish love from control, how to recognize if she's even gotten anywhere near that yet, inappropriate relationships, how to set boundaries, everything we've talked about, and how blurry this must get for her when you get messages like this, or for someone, an individual. Again, maybe she's unnaturally resilient, or maybe she never believed in all of it to begin with, but I'm speaking more for the average young believer here. If you can't be beneficial, the best thing you can do is remove yourself. Making a young person like this second guess themselves and feel shame over nothing, fear over nothing, guilt over nothing, not respecting their no. It's inexcusable. And if somehow this gets in front of the parents of this girl and you didn't see it like this before, I hope you see it now. And I hope you leave this church, but I hope that you do as much as you can against them, against this church, in warning other parents, in calling for these people to step down from their positions of authority. Every Christian should be doing this with every bad apple until there's no more bad apples. And when you can actually prove that this religion actually is as good as you continue to promote it to be, then people like me can shut up. But we are nowhere near that, because most of you, most of the time, would rather sweep this shit under the rug than deal with it. I'm not exaggerating any of this. I really believe all of this is as big as I have stated it, if not capable of being much bigger, depending on the individuals and the personalities and the situations. If anything, I've undersold all of this. I hope that this has been useful. That's why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it to get triggered and get mad and get views. I'm doing it because I really believe that there are so many people that can benefit from hearing this, from having a voice, just one, speak against the kind of thing that they're getting told over and over and over and over and over. I hope that this kind of video does find you. It's not going to happen divinely. It's not the kind of video I can do what the Christians do and say, this will find you at the right time. But I am making it in hopes the people who are dealing with this kind of thing or have dealt with this kind of thing can hear the other side of the coin, even if it's just from me, even imperfectly. This is what it is to speak out about harm. And I'm going to continue to do it where I see that harm most, which is the Christian religion in this country right now. It's not the only harm. It's the one I am most capable of speaking about and most effective at helping with, to answer all of the questions from Christians about why I care. So that's it. Thank you for being here. Please make this known to people that might need to see it. I hope to see you Thursday with a new video, and until then, keep thinking. I wanted to personally thank my top tiers of support: my Iconoclast, Ann, Chris, Grace Steele, Jimmy, Joe, Kiboga, Lori, Matthew, and Perry; my Humanist Heroes, Chris, James, Jared, and Christy; my Atheist Advocates, Aquitar, Caleb, Dakota, Dan, Jeff, Jeffrey, Jugs, Julie, Paul, Reggae, Sparky, and Thomas, as well as all of my Secular Scholar patrons and Mindshifter members. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. It means more than you know.